Hey all. So it's been a while since I've made a new video in this series, in part because we had a very long off season, but we've had a full season of High Ground since I last updated this list, and we have bans coming, so I figure it's worth talking about a few different things here. First off, I don't plan to alter the list explicitly based on bans, because it doesn't, bans don't really change who's good or not. Instead, bans just make the tier 2 and the tier 3 options that much more important because you may not always have the tier 1 options. To just use one that I have seen a lot of people using, if you don't have Torch, then maybe some of your other science options become more important. Maybe there are more fights that you're going to need to nuke with Immortal Abomination, or with Abomination or Spider Ham, that kind of thing. So we'll get there. The other thing that we're going to talk about is both high ground and the attack tactic. So, high ground itself makes certain champions like Guardian significantly better. The other thing that it does is that it makes some of these tier 2 options stand out. Now, I still think that Sorcerer Supreme and Diablo fall more into that, man, it's really nice that we have them tier than we really have to have them tier, but they are very strong within this second one. Both of them have a fair amount of energy resistance. Both of them cover for Doom if he's potentially banned. Both of them handle high ground well and just really fill out the class. So I haven't moved them, but I've bolded them here just to talk about how specifically good they are with high ground. Claire, just via how many hits are in her special 2, can also handle it pretty well, and Tigra has value as just a nuke. She will end fights quickly enough that high ground is usually not an issue. Now, within the Mystic class, since we're already here, I did go ahead and move Hood up, in part because I've just continued to be impressed with how well he's working, despite the fact that his miss is bugged and you do not always get 2 guaranteed misses out of it. Be very careful with that. But with the direction we're seeing the Cosmic class go, with the direction we're seeing nodes go, I think his stagger and his shutdown passive Fate Seal on his special 2 both become very strong. And then again, discussing high ground, his ability to work as a nuke if you are on top of being able to place a lot of his bullets and then detonate them with the heavy can really help end those fights quickly. Now, the other reason that Hood is good is because Kingpin is better, but I'll get to that when we get to skill. Now, within the honorable mentions here, I will say that Sigil Witch has impressed me, and I think I will probably be moving her up in the future, but it would feel weird to move her up this season and then immediately say, but be careful where you assign her because high ground punishes degen. It just doesn't really work for me. I do think she's going to move up because we're going to see great things out of her, and I've already seen some great things out of her, but I don't think you absolutely need her. And right now, I'm not even sure she feels nice to have because some of her best fights lead to the degens getting punished. You still absolutely can use her. I'm not talking anyone out of it, but I'm just not promoting her right now. Voodoo is still very rare. He is amazingly in the current feature crystal, so I don't think that will remain true forever. But I am highlighting him here because he has built-in energy resistance while blocking. So like Sorcerer Supreme and Diablo, he's quite good for high ground. I hope to see some videos floating around of him doing great things this season. Moving in class order, Science in the tier 1, I don't really think there's going to be much of a change here. It's just that we may see Torch banned. And in some tiers, we may see Quake banned. I don't really think any of the other Science champions are worth banning, but you never know. Some people may try and take out 2099 specifically because of his interaction with the boss node. I am highlighting She-Hulk in this second tier here because she benefits from the current attack tactic. So let's talk about that for a second. The attack tactic right now means that when you alternate 5-hit combo enders, so when you do a full 5-hit combo ending in a light and then a full hit combo ending in a medium, or vice versa, and then so on, you apply a wither based on either how many debuffs are on the opponent or how many prowess are on yourself. So She-Hulk can apply a fair number of debuffs to the opponent. She has her exhaustions on her special 1, she has her petrify on her special 2, but that means that she has even more power control, because she may not be able to stack as many withers as some other champions, but both exhaustion and petrify already affect ability power rate, which is what withers affect. So if you add her exhaustions or her petrify to, let's say, 2 or 3 withers, now you're dealing with some real power control, and that gives time for her taunt to kick in and for her to just be stronger and more on top of the fight in general. Now, you want to be careful because you don't necessarily want to lock down opponents completely with her if you're relying on the Furies ramping. But if you lock down opponents completely with her, then you're probably just destroying them in the corner with her. So is that really the end of the world? She's okay. Moving on to, I added a couple of honorable mentions here. One, we have OG Abomination, because, as we've talked about, high ground does kind of further benefit nukes. If that term is weird to anybody, I'm just referring to champions who can end a fight very quickly before it becomes a problem in any other way. And Abomination with the Red Guardian synergy puts out some truly respectable damage, so he does deserve to be on here. Spider-Ham similarly can put out an absolute ton of damage and can handle degen and special attacks. He has taunts for power control. Additionally, he benefits from the attack tactic. He can also place a bunch of withers on the opponent. So now you're punishing them if they throw specials. You're making it so that they throw specials more often with 2 different taunts. And you're blunting how much power they gain from things like Mystic Dispersion or anything within their own kits or the node by applying withers to them. Plus, every single one of his Porker Poppers, his special power stings, and the taunt itself is going to count towards how many withers he puts on the opponent. So I'm not comfortable putting him into, like, yeah, you should definitely have him available for offense yet, but I foresee the possibility of some cool Spider-Ham kills this season, and I just have to mention him because of how well he's going to synergize with the attack tactic. Moving on to skill, the biggest change I've made in Tier 1 is just taking Kingpin out of the you want a few of these that I discussed. Killmonger, Shang-Chi, Mole Man, Elsa, all 4 of those have some overlap. Kingpin shares some of that overlap, but his ability to shrug is so good that I have to move him out of that communal thing into his own spot because of the updates to Lane 9 in Section 2, so that there are now 5 hazard shift nodes on the whole map. And Kingpin can take almost anyone on those lanes. I took a Mojo in my last off-season war with Kingpin without the Sinister synergy, and was still able to blitz him down before the fight became a problem. He has truly amazing damage output and is really tanky on those nodes. And so if you do not have somebody with a rank 3 or higher Kingpin who knows how to play them in your battle group, you need to fix that regardless of who else you have. I think that the honorable mentions or unprovens deserve to remain pretty much as they are, but I am going to go ahead and throw Hawkeye into nice to have because his damage output is pretty significant via either bleed or poison. He has access to slow, which can be great in several different places, and he has his power drain on his special 1, plus the suppression that comes with it. That combo of both power control and slow is fairly rare, and so while I should maybe throw him into the honorable mentions, I think that anyone who has a rank 3 Hawkeye in their battle group is going to find uses for him and be happy they have him, which is more my definition for Tier 2. So taken a small risk there. Mutant, I haven't actually moved anything, but it's worth mentioning that Apocalypse benefits from the same attack tactic that we were talking about, and once he's charged, he has quite a few prowess. He's frigging Apocalypse, so add power control onto him, and you're talking about a force to be reckoned with. Archangel, the only reason I'm discussing him is because with bans, we introduce the possibility of him losing access to maybe Apocalypse or Magneto House of X, both of whom are used to make fights easier for Archangel. We'll see how that unfolds over the season. Same idea with Cable, he's still good, but if somehow you lose Apocalypse or House of X, things are going to get harder for him. Magneto House of X himself is not only a possible target of bans, he also benefits from the attack tactic. And if you have him at a decent number of charges, he can stack up to 10 prowess. In which case he can have up to 10 withers, which is, if I'm remembering correctly, a 200% reduction, and therefore a 100% reversal of power gain. I haven't seen a lot of people take advantage of this yet, but a Magneto with power control for, ability power gain is definitely interesting to me, and I could see him being stronger. Then there are just a bunch of other mutants that also benefit from the tactic. As I've talked about, feels weird for me to discuss all of them, but 3 in particular that we could see come into play more this season, especially if we see Apocalypse or House of X get banned, would be Bishop, Storm X, and Havoc. So Storm and Havoc benefit from the tactic, and Storm and Bishop both punish specifically the Purify of stuns and replace them with passive stuns. Bishop only does it to skill defenders, but those are some of the worst ones for that. And then Havoc punishes Purifies in general. All 3 of those, I think, are underused champions on offense. So with the benefit of the tactic and or the possibility of Apocalypse not being used, I could see all of their stock rising. So I'm keeping an eye on them. Moving around to tech, Nebula jumped all the way from honorable mention to tier 1 for me. The fact that they added new hazard shift nodes that she counters, the fact that we got a new and powerful robot in the form of Nimrod, the fact that she has proven to be a truly impressive nuke and high ground benefits that. All of those things have added up to a champion that I really think you want to have a copy of. Even more so if certain other champions like Torch or Ghost, etc. are removed. You want to have her around. So moving on to Nimrod, Kabam reworked Path 6 to add prowess and make it part of the challenge, and they just gave us 2 new mutants that gain both prowess and regen. Nimrod counters all of that. You're gonna want to have him around. He's not necessarily a must-have yet, in my opinion, but he's one that's really nice to have on the bench when you need him. So honorable mentions, I've been more and more impressed with Penny Parker, and her Sync Shield does counter high ground. However, I haven't seen a ton of places where it's really felt like, okay, yeah, things are just being made easier by having access to Penny. I may get there, but I'm being a little more cautious on this one. Very good champion though, keeping my eye on her. And then the other one here just refers to the 2 visions. I know some people prefer OG Vision and the way that his SIG works. I do not. I prefer Age of Ultron. But either way, you are looking at a champion with significant power gain control and double immunities. There are places to use that. They've both kind of fallen out of the meta, but my eyes are on them because I could see them coming back. Now with Cosmic, I moved Cosmic Ghost Rider down because the way that I was describing him, yes, he does come up a few times a season, but the way I was describing him as making paths easier, it's like, oh, thank God we have a CGR, does fit tier 2 better than tier 1. He's still a good champion. If you are very good with him, then you can take nodes with him that I wouldn't feel comfortable assigning to anyone, and then that makes him even more of an asset but in general, I think tier 2 fits a bit better. And then I'm throwing in Null here because, he counters healing just via despair with how many debuffs he adds. He has a different way of dealing with armor ups than just your traditional armor break. He pairs very well with the recoil tree masteries, so he makes for a pretty solid nuke. He hits hard in general. He's sustainable. He heals. He has unblockable and unstoppable if you need to get openings. I just think that he's definitely someone that it's going to be nice to have around and go, oh, you know what? That's a great spot for Null right there. Let's use him. So I hope you all found this helpful. I will be including a link to the playlist for previous entries in this series in the description if any of the things that I did not talk about on this spreadsheet seem odd to you. But in general, the things that I've talked about, to me, herald some possible shifts in the meta. I think bans do that automatically. I'm curious to see how that'll shake out. And in general, I'm just happy to have War back, because it has been entirely too long, and it's my favorite part of the game. So good luck to everybody with their seasons, and I will catch y'all next time. Till then, thanks for watching, and take care.